It's another beautiful Sunday afternoon. This is Rubbin Minds. Welcome. My name is Ebuka Obiuchendu. Thanks a lot for joining us. We're going to be kicking off the show right away, talking about the economy. The Central Bank of Nigeria yesterday issued out a directive saying that all banks in the country have to close all cryptocurrency-related accounts, and that has puts a lot of people in in a state of sort of confusion and trying to understand where we go from here, because cryptocurrency is becoming a huge part of conversations around the world. And based on a lot of statistics, Nigeria has been ranked either second or third in the world with regards to transactions related with cryptocurrency. So it's a heavy part of our conversation in the country these days. And to hear that directive has thrown a lot of people off, and we're going to try and understand what that means for the economy and what that means for people who have been trading in that space going forward. I had with me Gospel Obele. Thanks for being here today. So like I said, let's just start from the jump. Help us break down the meaning of this directive from the central bank saying that, the Bitcoins and all of the cryptocurrency space can't be traded here in Nigeria anymore. What does that mean?
So it just primarily means that all transactions and engagements within the crypto space, all right, with commercial banks and other financial institutions, fintechs and the likes, have been banned for now. That's the assumption.
Yeah.
So it would go a long way to, of course, disrupt a lot of activities in terms of crypto dealers, crypto markets, and even businesses who leverage all of these mechanisms to sort their supply chain and all of that, and many other reasons why people adopt, the crypto in the first place.
So, for those who don't know, what is cryptocurrency, and why? How did we get to this point where it has become, where government has had to put a word into that space?
So just like initially where we had the trade by barter system, all right, the means through which value is being exchanged has evolved, all right. Moved from that to cows and all of that, and then using coins, and then had paper currencies and the like. So now we're in a situation where there's an emergence of cryptocurrencies, and they are majorly Bitcoins and two other major types like that. And the idea is these currencies move through digital payment platforms, or they are more of detailed payment platforms where people can sort transactions and all the likes. Now, it's not accepted yet as a legal tender, in terms of as medium of value exchange globally, as a lot of institutions globally are also seeking to understand how that process works. And as such, regulations, even by the IMF and a lot of institutions like that, have not been set in place to manage that space properly. But because it's digital, or of course, and there are no limits to how much transactions and how much can be done in that space, all right, people have sort of leveraged it, especially for nations especially for stakeholders in the countries like Nigeria, where we cannot afford to have access to FX and a lot of other things. So people have found it as a medium to hedge for currency risk, to sort payments through supply chains and all of that, and many other interesting engagements in that regard. So it's not yet certified as a legal tender, but it's as how would I put it now? Presented itself as a good means through which people can exchange value, all right, in the global market space, especially when it comes to do with borderless transactions and the likes. But then it comes with its ups and downs, and the goal is just to see how we can juggle both, to make sense of it.
So if it's a digital trading space, how then do physical banks get involved? How did they get into the conversation with regards to you being able to go in and get money? And why is the CBN now worried about that?
So in terms of transactions now, a lot of transactions move through those spaces in the digital space and all of that. And then secondly, there are also convertibility questions around it. Okay, so when you have a naira and you want to convert to a particular dollar, convert to a particular currency, and probably the goal is to sort a supply issue in another market externally. Those monies are converted through crypto means, to access the end means, which is probably a product or a service or something like that. And then the other conversion goes on in the other markets. And that's the point to which this value of exchange is being done. Yeah. So yes, banks get involved because transactions are largely moved through financial and non-financial institutions and all that. So you cannot go through that value chain without having to deal core with the financial institutions, be it deposit money banks or other financial institutions in
So
the
what are your
space.
thoughts on this directive by the central bank? Because there are people who I've seen several arguments online. People saying, oh, well, this is a terrible idea. This is the future of commerce, of financial transactions and all of that. The world is moving in this direction. Nigeria should not be moving backwards. There's also the conversation about how this has become hijacked, for want of a better word, by people who are using it for illegal means and all of that. What are your thoughts on this, and what is a valid reason you think would have been for this to have happened?
Okay, so you remember during our last conversation, I had mentioned that the way the world is now structured, all right, countries who are the lower rung of the developmental ladder would always suffer a major hit in terms of any major changes that happens in the world today. All right. Now, with the advent of the crypto and all of that, and with the impact and all that, as we discussed earlier on, we found a situation where, countries like ours are not strategically ready to engage in terms of this technology disruption in digital payments and the likes. What would have happened is probably in the last decade, because this conversation has been on for a long time, the CBN could have probably invested in trying to understand what it means and how we can adopt intelligently. Because, however, there are still loopholes to this thing that even the global monetary institutions are trying to understand. So it's still in the process, but significant resources and time could have been invested in it just to understand how the process works, and then create intelligent guidelines and process through which financial and non-financial institutions can adopt these changes. So, but what we say now is an outright ban, which is the same case we saw for the closure of borders and the FX restrictions and the likes. And all of these things happen because there are severe leakages in the Nigerian economy. So when there are severe leakages with ineffective monetary policy institutions and monetary policy itself, and a gross level of fiscal indiscipline, all right, you have a situation where people would find creative means to leverage globalization and all that technology has to offer to enhance what they do for a better life, primarily.
Yeah.
All right? So it means that technology and the citizens have advanced beyond what our monetary or fiscal policies are providing to us in terms of options and solutions to deal or engage change. All right? So it doesn't make critical sense in terms of economic development and shared prosperity to throw out an outright ban. All right? It could have been probably that you introduce policies in stages, all right, to manage and curtail. Because, just like you mentioned before we started the interview, that if armed robbers are in a particular environment, would you say you may not live there? All right. There are many other forms of illicit capital inflows and outflows all over the world, capital flights and the likes. But the thing is, people are still doing business. All right. Now, people have even found this as an avenue to hedge for currency risk. Every time the Naira finds itself in face with other currencies or alternative currencies, we'll find out that it gets weaker. All right, so people are thinking of intelligent means through which they can maximize opportunities such as this and all that. So I think what the CBN could have done was to have been more proactive, or rather than being reactive with the solution.
Yeah.
All right, our policies have been reactive so far, and they have been patchy. And these policies do not still solve the fundamental problem, which is trying to understand the global digital payment space and how it's fast evolving and also helping businesses make critical decisions, all right? So I think a level of investment should have gone into trying to understand it, first of all, and then managing the excesses in stages so as to protect SMEs and protect those who are using it for what it's supposed to be, and then trying to curtail the excesses.
Well, I think we're joined online now by Solomon Cryptomine, who's the co-founder of EasyChaw. Solomon, if you can hear me, I know that you play a huge part in the cryptocurrency space. What's your reaction to the CBN's directive, and how are you looking at working your way around this?
Okay. So the thing here is the cryptocurrency space is actually quite broad. It's grown beyond the way it was about 5-6 years ago. And talking from the perspective that I've been in this space since 2016, what I understand from what the CBN said was that banks would not be able to come in direct contact with cryptocurrency transactions. So if you can see, so many persons were affected. The people that trade with the likes of Luno, Remitano, and Binance, they were really, really affected. But peer-to-peer traders were not affected in any way. So those were the people that this whole thing affected. And I would really say, coming from the side of CBN, I feel they were actually very much misinformed about this whole narrative of cryptocurrency. And those paying the dear price for it are those that don't have enough knowledge about the whole cryptocurrency ecosystem. But for the traders that have been in this space for at least 3, 4, 5 years, we are not bothered about it because our transactions are still going on very, very well. There are so many other means that we can use to get our funds. And in fact, for someone like me, I don't really have my stash in the Naira account. Most of my stash is in the USD Theta, which is something that all cryptocurrency traders do. And that's the whole idea of cryptocurrency, where you hedge with the US dollar and you can easily trade and move funds in your futures and derivatives trading. So if you ask me, I would say at least someone needs to like inform the CBN and they should be able to draft out better policies that at least can favor everyone.
Yeah. So I hear you, but not everybody who's in this space is able to have the luxury of all of these alternatives or understands it even as well as you do. Because like he has said earlier, this is sort of a new space for a lot of people. There's very sparse regulation around the world. So is it a valid argument to say that, okay, for a sector that is not fully regulated and not fully understood, the central bank is trying to be careful to, make sure that people are safe and their funds are safe. And of course, there's the argument about, the fact that illicit transactions have started happening in that space. Are those valid arguments against letting this work here?
Yes, sincerely. It's a valid argument, but the truth is, it's every new technology. They are the ones that will abuse it. You can't stop that. Once you bring up a new technology, you have people that will be looking for loopholes to use that to scam some innocent persons. And the best way to prevent people from falling in the hands of the scammers is just by educating the masses. So that's why I personally, from last year, I had to put myself out there to educate as much persons as possible. The CBN, on their part, they are trying their best to see how at least they can mitigate the risk that the users face, especially the ones that are low risk and have no idea. So I would say from the CBN side, at least it's a valid argument. Yes, there are so many illicit transactions going on in the cryptocurrency space, but you can't stop that. That's for a fact. You really can't stop that. It's just like money laundering. No matter how hard you try to stop it, some persons will still look for ways to get it done. So you can't stop it. The only thing the CBN can do is to educate Nigerians, educate them such that they can protect themselves from these scammers and they won't fall prey for most of the scam projects coming up, because sincerely, there are so many scam projects. And every time I converse with different persons about the cryptocurrency, I found out that there are so many illiterates. If I would use that word, there are so many illiterates and novices in the crypto economy in Nigeria. So I would say the CBN should channel much of their efforts into educating the masses. What we have these days mostly are just traders. Like if you hear the people complaining, they are all traders in the cryptocurrency. Even like, for example, Patricia, they are all traders. Luno, they are all traders. They are not really concerned about the core blockchain technology, where you have some of us that are also traders and we are very much concerned about the core blockchain technology. And this crypto economy is something that can also very much help the banks when you talk of decentralized finance, which is an area I feel CBN should really set their mind towards, like harnessing the power of decentralized finance. It's a very powerful ecosystem that I feel Nigeria really needs.
So what happens to the average guy now in Nigeria who, I'm not in tech, I'm not in financial space, I just have a regular job, but I happen to put some money in there now. With this policy, I'm completely confused. What am I supposed to do now?
Sincerely, so many of them are in panic right now. I have so many persons chatting me up since yesterday. They've been asking, how do I sell my Bitcoins? What do I do now? Because the only way they know how to sell their Bitcoins is via Luno, Patricia, Binance, and some other platforms. And I just had to start tutoring them that they can still do that via peer-to-peer, which is a very easy way. And the whole peer-to-peer is more like you're in a platform and I am in a platform, and you hit me up that you want to sell your Bitcoin, and I simply give you my address, you send it to me, and I transfer from my Naira account to your Naira account. So all the banks will be seeing happening is just money moving from one account to the other. They won't be able to tell what that money was meant for, if it is for a normal transaction or if it was for something else. They wouldn't really know. And that still works, but so many persons don't know about that. And sadly, so many persons sold their Bitcoin at less than the value they were supposed to because of panic and fear. So in a nutshell, this has caused so many persons to lose so much funds between yesterday and today. So many persons have really lost funds, sincerely speaking.
Yeah, I'll come back to you, Solomon. But Gospel. There's a lot of talk about the NSAS protests as soon as this was announced, because there was a huge reliance by people during the protest to make payments and source funds and make contributions and donations via Bitcoin and all of those other cryptocurrency platforms. Do you see this as a reaction to that?
I would say not exactly.
I asked that, sorry, because, bank accounts were shut or suspended. Any bank accounts that were linked, to the protest at the time were shut down. With cryptocurrency, there was no way to trace anything. So this felt like, okay, let's shut this down completely so that it doesn't happen again. And it almost came at the same time as the announcement that the Lekki toll gate will be reopening. Exactly. So it felt like too many coincidences at the same time.
So I won't say the NSAS protest particularly, because with COVID-19 came a world where how would I put it? There was a rise in economic stimulus. All right. So that was a period through which there was also a hike in weekly cryptocurrency transactions. All right. Nigeria was doing as high as $200 to $300 million per week, on crypto transactions. So, and this was pre NSAS protest, So I think the NSAS protest just hiked up everything, and it was an avenue to quickly exchange funds, and in also in view of funding protests and all of that. So I want to say maybe it's a series of events that are unfolding, all right, and but I don't want to. There are no evidence to back that yet.
Yeah.
However, what I would also want to look at is that the economy is sitting on the fence right now, all right, and we are at the verge of a collapse. And that's to say that all of the policies that the CBN has put in place since the COVID-19 period and all of that has been tilted towards expansionary, expanding the economy and enabling recovery. All right. What this will do is that it's going to be a bit more counterproductive and on the expansionary part of what they're trying to do. All right. And it's a bit contracting in terms of they don't agree, and it's incoherent in the sense of things. All right. So, and what would happen is crypto dealers and people who would usually engage transactions on these platforms would have to source them from either the black market, or they'll put more pressure on the dollar that's on foreign exchange markets. And that may affect the price of goods and services, because whichever way it goes, the burden of trying to source for newer payment platforms or processes will be pushed down to the final consumer. And we are back again, all right, to stretching that recessionary impact and all of that on the consumer. So it's a chain of policies that seem to be self-destructive. However, I would want to expect the CBN to be a bit more proactive and considerate in how they engage all of these dynamics. But then again, I don't think the CBN is independent enough to undertake the task.
Are you worried about investments? Because Nigeria has been, crying for the last couple of years. Countries like Ghana are starting to, speed past us with regards to FDI. We're at a position where policy changes and sort of drastic policy statements makes people lose confidence in investing here.
You'll be surprised that Ghana, even Kenya, Rwanda, are getting more of FDI traction than we are, because we are very much inconsistent with our policies. And number two, trying to go back to the crypto conversation again, it has been an opportunity through which the foreign investors and the likes can engage the Nigerian economy and try to secure the value of the currency in the space.
Yeah.
All right. So I fear that it may affect foreign direct investments and both internally and externally. And the idea of capital flights and all of these things. So, but primarily, CBN has to improve in its communication in the sense, because you can't just write a letter and address banks and they put it up there. All right, there has to be more intelligent, deliberate communication. And the idea of trying to ban outrightly doesn't work again. The Nigerian economy is complex and complicated. Until you understand that, complex, complicated, and very vulnerable, until you understand those three dynamics, I don't think that we will be in the space where we can get out of this in the shortest time. So recovery is critical.
Thank you very much, Gospel. Thank you very much, Solomon. I still had so many questions to ask, because even I am just completely boggled by all of this. I'm just wondering what happens now to, the entire space. But thanks for joining us. We'll probably have you back and continue this conversation some other time. We'll take a quick break and be right back. Don't go away.